Hey, mic check, mic check, mic check. Mic check, mic check, mic check. Okay, sweet. Uh, I don't know what it is when because I'm lucky it was, it didn't, I don't remember it happening too much. But when I first started doing this, maybe I'm being hacked by a big brother. I don't know, but I never, I didn't, I was used to not watching the stream because before I got a new modem, they sent it to me. I wasn't getting, I had problems, and so I just wasn't watching the stream, and I never had any problem when I put the video up. The ones I checked, the sound was all good, and this one here, I don't know, but hope everybody's doing okay. Uh, um, I got a lot. I got a fair amount. I'm gonna see if I can get through it all. I may not. But this is the best I've felt in over a week today, and it's still not great. But it's. I had to go out and do the snow, and I felt better like the day after than the day after that. But in the past it's been that way where it affects me for a couple days, and but main thing is there's an interview with Jeremy Corbell that I watched. I took notes. I'm going to talk about it. I'm not gonna cover it in full detail, but it's his second appearance on Steve-O, the guy from Jackass, and I highly recommend you go watch it. Uh, and maybe someday I'll be a little disappointed, but his podcast or his interviews or podcasts, George Knapp, they are some of the best information you can get. Like he's talked about that jellyfish. I got tons more information listening to him. If it's a lie, if he's lying to me, then I'm lying to you. But I'm not doing it on purpose. And I got conclusions today that he he isn't doing it on purpose either. At least there's something he said that it kind of made me. But there's a couple things I don't think they're in the notes. If they are, I'll get to them. I'll just mention it and skip over. But I have never made this connection. And it was the surprise guest host of Steve-O. I don't remember his name. I mean, I watched some of the movies. I thought the movies were funny as hell. I'm not a hater, but I don't know the names of the Jackass guys. Other than Johnny Knoxville, Steve-O I recognize. I think there was one called Party Boy. The fucking the midget. Oh God, I had it a minute ago. I cannot remember the midget. Well, this is the guy that got the pubic hair glued to his face. And when Corbell was asked about when Corbell was asked what his favorite UFO story, the first one he gave, or the most believable one first one he gave was Betty and Barney Hill, and he mentioned it. And then when he mentioned it the second time, it was the guy with the pubic hair that, they all shaved their nuts and then they glued it on like it was a terrorist beard and they had him go around. And I'm not going to go into detail. It was pretty bad. But he was on and he made the jump. He goes, Betty and Barney. He goes, like the Flintstones. And I'm like, oh my God. And I don't know. He doesn't know. He didn't try to claim he knew, but he goes, was that early enough that it could have been like the reason why they named those two characters that? And when he found out when it came, yeah, it was before that. Well, it could be again, it taking a lot on faith, but it could be that somebody involved in the making of the Flintstones was like a UFO fan, and that kind of cracked me up. And there is a thing I don't think I got it mentioned. If I did, I'll skip over it later. He got talking about what people have found, and he made a comment that uh, people like Neil deGrasse Tyson, people that they have. To me, Neil deGrasse Tyson comes off as those people that are in the military, and then they act like that makes them an expert on everything in the military. And I've seen him do it, and they'll be like, well, I walked a patrol for 20 years, and blah blah blah, I know this, I know. Well, no, you know about walking a patrol. You're not a strategic expert. You weren't the one planning the fucking mission. There's a whole host of things that you don't know, and you don't get to just throw that out that you served for 20 years and then get everybody to. You have to earn that. And and usually, not always, but usually when you hear the stuff coming out of their mouth, it it's like, yeah, you need to go learn something. You need to learn something. uh it just, it is what it is. But he said that Neil deGrasse Tyson was a smart man, and he needed to stop talking and start learning, and then he could be useful. And I'm like, yeah, because here's the thing. I've said that before, but I'm not. I'm a nobody. I'm not. I get it. There might be a couple people, but like when he says it, that could actually get out to people. So that's kind of cool. And the um, but you got that, and the one sort of TV show I can relate to that. It it was, and again, I can't remember. I think it was Jeremy Corbell, but it was the guy that was interviewing. It was I don't know. It was a news guy, and it was on an online video, an online clip. I can't give you the exact, but he made the comment that a lot of these people that are saying things don't know what they're talking about. And he made the comment. He goes, if we went back in time and told Magellan, who was like a leading expert on sea travel of his day, such as it is, and you explained to him that they had this metal thing made with wings, and they could do what he does in a boat in like a month or two in 3 hours, he'd tell you you're nuts. And these people these people they're the same way. They can tell you if, and he's not a propulsion expert. I think he's got a degree in astronomy. He does not. Again, I don't know all of what that entails, but it seems like he's got the same degree Avi Loeb does, and Avi Loeb and others are coming, and it gets me to believe. I really wonder if Neil deGrasse Tyson is a paid asset. Literally, I don't know, or if he's being a useful asset. Or he might not be being paid, but he might be getting fed a line of bullshit. But and I'll get into that later because they talk about that. But if you watch Stargate SG-1, there was a episode where Sam, who was in the show, a leading expert on astrophysicist, everything gate related, alien technology, and I think it was the second or third episode with the Tolan. Maybe it was the first one. She gave the Tolan guy a cat, and it was called Schrodinger, and she did it as a way to pump him for information. And she explained. Well, she goes, "Oh, it's Schrodinger," and she explained the whole uh, story behind it. And then when she explained Schrodinger's cat is a it's linked to science. The physicist envisioned that until somebody saw the cat, it was both alive and dead. And then he shakes his head. He goes, "Oh yeah, that's an early misconception that my people dealt with." And that's what I'm getting at. Neil deGrasse Tyson, for as smart as he is, if it's true, these people that are dealing with it, like Bob Lazar and others, if it's true, and they were talking about this at the end of the episode, that's why I want to try and inject it in here. These things are so far beyond us that they don't have a clue. They literally do not have a clue. And how can these guys be so cocksure of what they're saying when they don't understand how this stuff works? And maybe he might still be a useful idiot or whatever, or a useful tool, might be getting paid. He might not have seen one, so maybe he honestly believes it. But he quite often, and I don't see him on as much, but he quite often is talking about stuff that he clearly doesn't understand. It's not in his field of expertise. Now, if you want to understand the physics of when of how planets move and stuff like that, and that's where like Avi Loeb shines. And I don't think I've seen him speak out on Oumuamua. So maybe he's avoiding the things where he's clear. And again, I don't know, because again, I used to see him, like, MSNBC has not talked about it. They initially had the stories, but as the story has come out, it seems like they don't follow up on the story, because they originally, like, one of the guys on there had Neil deGrasse Tyson on, and then he would debunk it. Well, I and others, I'm sure they didn't just do it for me, but I and others wrote in and like, why are you bringing him on? He clearly doesn't know anything about it. He hasn't done the work. And I go, I used to hate my math teacher, who made me show my work, because I could, back then, before I got sick at GM, I could do the math in my head. I didn't need, as long as I was focused on it, I did not need scratch paper. Well, I can kind of sort of understand why she wanted me to show my work. It's like, well, Neil deGrasse Tyson is the reason why. You got to show your work. And ooh, hang on. And there's a couple other things. If I think about them, I'll interject. I honestly can't remember what the. I thought I had an anvil. I must have used it up yesterday. Um, but but he is, and there's other ones that I have seen in like documentaries, and so I just saw a recent one with something my brother watched on the Discovery or Travel Channel or something. There's just a debunker, that they brought in, and I think it was on Roswell or something. But I've seen them in other shows. They have their favorite debunkers, and this will come up later, and I might forget. But when I start talking about government interference in the media, remember, I'm bringing this up now, and you can remember it later in case I don't. Um, okay, now first of all, uh, please, please, please write everybody you vote for and ask them to legalize assisted suicide. What I've got doesn't appear. I don't know. I might never need it. I might need it, you know, going forward. But I watched my mom die in hospice, and hospice was great. They did everything you could legally. I am not. This is not a complaint on them. This is a complaint on the system. We've got Republicans. We need to tell them to go fuck off. They let kids get killed. You know, when kids get killed, thoughts and prayers. Uh, and you know that. Well, um, we need to. The Dr. Kevorkian was right. The doctor was right. And these people, they let kids die. They make it legal for insurance companies and hospitals to murder people because nobody can pay. And we don't have health care. You know, if you can, you can afford it. Uh, but a lot of people don't have health care, especially in Republican-run states. So we need to have this, and unless they're gonna, make it easier to get on disability, make it easier to get on health care. Provide. I mean, really, I firmly believe that the insurance that Congress has, we should have. If we can afford to give it to them, and that's what we're doing. It's welfare. If we can afford to give it to them congressmen, we can afford it to give everyone that votes for them. We can have every kid, every woman, every man in this country. And if we can't afford it for us, then we can't afford it for them. And they should come down to our shit. And I firmly believe that. And this was something I felt even before I got sick. But as far as I can tell, I was drugged or poisoned when I worked at GM. I can't work, and I just want it available if I get sick or when I run out of money. I literally just, that's the way I feel. I should have that as a right. It should not be a privilege because I don't want to get to where I have to steal to survive. I don't want to, I don't want to get. I mean, I did. I put out a GoFundMe, and it didn't go anywhere, and I didn't expect it to. I knew it was a long shot. I probably wouldn't have even given to me. Back in the day, I'm being honest. I probably wouldn't have even done it. And but if we don't live in a world, we've got it where the Republicans have got it so fucked up. You can't get on health care. I mean, I got a sneaking feeling because it was asked. And why would you ask if it wasn't important? But it seems to me that if I was in a if I was in a situation where I was a drug addict or an alcoholic, if I had some kind of a substance abuse, it sounds like I'd have it. And I'm not asking for you to take anything away from them people. I'm not. But I shouldn't be treated like a second class citizen because I'm not a junkie. And I didn't get this until they sent me to see their psychiatrist, for that. But if I had bad parents, I might have insurance, or I might have health, or I might have money, disability. And I'm not throwing my parent. My parents did a good job raising me. They were good people and all that. And I'm not throwing them under the bus so I can get paid. I'm not willing to do it. So please, get that legalized. And then I gotta fucking. Okay, now the Pentagon. This is the name. This is the video. Pentagon issues statement in response to jellyfish, and it's on News Nation. Yeah, they're one of the few. The Hill is doing it too, but I'm not kidding you. I'm pretty progressive. I am pretty progressive. The fucking Hill is off. I don't know if I trust them. I literally don't. But they're like I would consider News Nation. I would consider them news. I don't know if they're as good as NBC or BBC or NPR or whatever. But so far, they haven't let me down. They seem like they're credible news, at least on the UFO thing. But some of the stuff on the Hill, I don't really watch their clips anymore because they just, even when they're covering the UFO, they're like, oh, where's their proof? They should just come out, blah blah blah. And it's like, yeah, maybe you, but people in the government do not have journalist protection when they breach confidentiality, when they violate their oath. Ask Reality Winner. So they just don't, and it just seems kind of stupid. They do occasionally. I can't. I wish I could remember her name because they have this woman that covers it. Now she's a credible journalist, so I think they took it off of the fucking junior squad, but they have someone who covers it a little more. I mean, I can't. I really don't have any fault with her story. She maybe doesn't go as far as I would, but she does a decent job reporting it, and I wish I could remember. I see her on MSNBC every now and then. Pentagon issues. This is the video. Yeah, the jellyfish one. If the reporting is accurate, this was an incursion on an American base. It happened in Iraq, and it was like 2018 or something like that. And I believe the footage is American military footage. The Pentagon makes a statement of no comment on the jellyfish. This is likely a confirmation, but it could mean they don't know, which could be worse. I really, because like you got, this is how the government reacts. You got like your DOJ, like they will not confirm or deny, usually, unless it's a real political case. They will not. You can ask them, well, are you investigating? We will not speak on an open, we will not speak on an open or shut case that we're working on. And most of the time, that's the way they answer everything. Occasionally I think they screw up and they go, oh, no, we're not investigating that. But usually I think they do it either way. Like if you're not, whether you are working on one or you're just not willing to go public, or whether you're not working on one, it's more or less the same answer. But with the Pentagon, they don't have the justice problem. I think it's a confirmation. And so that it's a real short video, but you can go check that one out. Now this one here, I almost didn't include it. NASA confirms the discovery of the 10th planet, and that's on the Simply Space, if I got it right. Now, it was the California Institute of Discovery. There were 3 scientists, and I was fading. I kind of sundown at night. But there was a woman and 2 men, 3 scientists. But the Chicago Discovery of Institute, they discovered a dwarf planet near Neptune. And I have no idea. I literally have no idea if it is right or not. But it looked legitimate. I don't know. If you're interested, you can check that out. But I almost didn't share it, but I kind of wanted to talk about the subject, and I think I can go from memory. All I can do is whet your appetite, and then you have to go from there if you are interested. But this is not Planet X. So to me, the video was misleading, but it brings up the issue. I'll do, like I said, I'm going to do my best to go for this from memory. Back when the scientists discovered Pluto, they couldn't see it. We did not have we didn't have the discovery ability to see it. And so what they did was, I can't remember the guy's name. If you look it up, you'll be able to find it. This is pretty. I think it's there was an old it was an old mathematician. I want to say I don't quote me on this. This is one of those things where you don't even have to trust. You need to verify it. But I want to say it was like in the 1500s or something like that. There was a mathematician that discovered some of the outer planets, and what they did was they could tell by the gravity interaction with stuff that they could see. And so this is what this guy did. And I mean, okay. And they then when they could see Pluto, they it's the ninth planet. And now what they've done is they first of all, and this is he does not deserve it, but Neil deGrasse Tyson is one of the ones I blame for this. Like I grew up in the '70s going to school, and the '80s, and I think even I think it was after I graduated high school. Pluto was a planet. They had the Disney dog named after him. He was a fucking, it was a fucking planet. And um, and then all of a sudden they decided it wasn't a planet anymore. And like I said, I'm not. It's not his fault. It is what it is. But I firmly blame Neil deGrasse Tyson for that. But um, but then they called it a dwarf planet. And then this one I don't even know what the name of it is, but it's a dwarf planet near Neptune. Well, for several years they have been searching for planet X or the 10th planet. There was an author. God, there are two authors, and I keep getting them mixed up. There is Zachariah Stitchin, and then the other one. He's like one of the I don't know if he's involved or if they just give him credit, but he's involved with the ancient aliens. His name I think is on the credits for Ancient Aliens, and one of them was like this guy's younger than the other guy. He was like a fucking hotel manager or something like that who wrote a book, and the other guy I can't even remember the names of the books. I mean, even if I'm gonna get them wrong, I can't remember the names of the books. But one of them has wrote a book. I think it's the older guy, but I might be wrong. But he's wrote this book, and I think it's called The 12th Planet. And it's he talked about an ancient race of people. They came here and created us, or fuck the fuck the ancient humans and evolved them or something. But I don't remember the specifics, and they might not even actually be right. They might be like the Bible. It's just something that it's a story they tell people, and but it's this planet that only comes into range every 3,000, 5,000, 6,000 years or something like that. And nowadays, it might just be that's when they check on us. See how they're, it's like And again, I've heard like George Knapp and others speculate. Well, what if we find out we were an agricultural experiment? Well, that's what this guy says. He's like, we're like a herd of something, that somebody created, and they come and check up on us every now and then. Well, if this is something he wrote, and then scientists, I think it was probably some people who were fans of his work or had been inspired by his work, and they started looking again. And they started doing what that original scientist did who had discovered, Pluto. And here's the thing, since Pluto they named Pluto Pluto because they thought they'd found his planet, the one that he based on the gravitational effects on surrounding objects or near Earth objects. So, since Pluto isn't big enough to be capable of that, I speculate that they never found Pluto, and so that when we find this other planet, we should name it Pluto. But I understand why that's not a real thing. But they started looking, and they came to the same conclusion. There's at least one other planet out there that we cannot see, and so they're looking for this planet X. This is a real thing. I don't know. I'm not even saying we're going to find it in our lifetime. Maybe we lost it and it's no longer there or something. Because you gotta think the light from the other planets, that takes a while to get here. But that's the thing. And so this one. So we found the 10th planet. To me it was, and maybe I'm wrong, but to me it's like they were speculating on finding that planet X. And here's the thing, okay? If there is a planet X, and there's scientific evidence that confirms that, while he's right about that, are we going to find an older civilization on it? Are we going to find real life people on it? Or maybe we're going to find like what was mentioned in the Bible in it. On it or what, I don't know, but that's the long and short of it. And again, if you want to, there's a little bit out there, but the thing is, nobody knows. But you can basically look it up by searching for Planet X. You should bring up some information on it. Okay, next video. UAP expert Jeremy Corbell explains the Miami Mall aliens. Lee Batard Show is the channel. LEBATARD Show, no spaces, all one word. He talks about a lot. This actually is a good video to check out. But I just was interested in the mall. He talked about the jellyfish. I think he talked about the chandelier video, but I was mostly interested in Jeremy's take, and maybe the guy who hosts the show, his take on the mall video. Now this one here, Jeremy goes over the jellyfish video, state of leaks, and the fact that this goes back a century and is described the same. That's one of the things. And again, you get, I really like, if he turns out to be wrong, hey, fair enough. But he went into it on the Steve-O's show. He talked about how he tries to, how he tries to be careful. And if he gets it wrong, he gets it wrong. But I think he's doing whatever humanly he can to not get punked on this. And speaking of that, but he talked about the way it's described, and I wasn't aware of this, but at least I don't remember it. But the way they described that jellyfish, and to me it looked like that sensor droid the Empire launched at the beginning of Empire Strikes Back, the one that Han and Chewie took out, tag team style. It looked a little bit like that, and but it goes back centuries, at least a century, and is described the exact same way. And you can take a look at some of these things that the military is encountering. You can go back and in court in time, you hear them described the same way. They were the Foo Fighters in World War II. You see like Columbus. He. I mean, I'm not making this up. He has things he saw. He saw lights around the Bermuda Triangle. There were nothing. I mean, nothing by man that was illuminated, and it sounded like he might have saw something. So these things go back centuries where they've been talked about. And he said the fighter pilots are seeing UFOs almost daily. Almost either daily or almost daily is the way. And we're hearing about a fraction of them. This is again why. Uh, uh, I mean, this is why we need the Chuck Schumer amendment. That will get to the. That's my second call to action. You need to write, and I think this only does you good to write people in Washington, but you need to write the people that you vote for in Washington, in the House, in the Senate. If you got a senator, if you got one senator that's kind of a douchebag traitor like me with Ron Johnson, maybe just write to the good senator. Maybe write to the president. But you gotta get on this because according to him, and fighter pilots are seeing this almost daily. And I I I think about World War II, or no, not World War, the Civil War. Uh, and then there was a John Wayne movie that used the example when they were talking about it. In Harm's Way, really good. It's an old black and white John Wayne. It was really, really good. Um, really sad, but really, really good. And he talked about when Nimitz brought in, and I don't know if these guys, I don't know if John Wayne's character was based on a real person, but Nimitz brought him in, and he said, "Well, yeah, I got the same problem that they had in World War II or Civil War. You had all these generals, and I think the one guy was, uh, oh God, I might have the name wrong, but I think it's McClellan or something like that. He's got a saddle named after him, and I guess it's a very very uncomfortable saddle. But he had a whatever his name was, and I might have the wrong guy. But they he had this general that wanted to do everything perfect, everything by the book, and so nothing was getting done. He's one of these fucking, and I'm sure everybody's had people in management that you've worked for or worked with who's the same way. People that just never got anything done, and then he had Grant, a drunk. you Grant was a drunk, and he just went in there, whether things were perfect, whether things were ready. He just said, "Fuck it, let's go," and he would go into battle, and then things started moving. And in fact, one time, he was commented on by his other generals as a drunk. And he goes, "Well, if I knew what he drank, I'd send a case of it to all my other generals so they could start doing what." And this was the character John Wayne was playing in Harm's Way. Kirk Douglas was in it. He played a good guy who fucked up, and he ended up killing himself. He went on a suicide mission. I mean, it was good. It helped the war. And I don't know if this is based on a real story at this point, or if it's just a good movie. But uh, I'm not gonna. If you want to watch it, go watch it. It's I don't want to spoil it for you, just in case. But it might not be Might not be anything you ever heard of. It's kind of like this big weed story, or no, Wings of Eagles. Um, these are ones that just were not. They were not. They were not like well known. Well known of his work. But Nimitz, he made the pitch to me. He goes, "Well, what are my restrictions?" He goes, "Well, you can't kill him, but short of that, beg, borrow, and steal, and get this done." And so he was basically put in there uh, to work around this admiral who was just standing in the way. And I'm not kidding you. They got to do something on this, and I'm just saying this. If you got no one else, you know, and I'm not qualified. I'm not even a drunk anymore. Like Grant, I can't. I don't really drink because of what's going on. Uh, but if you can't find somebody else to do it, I'll do it. You got to give me the authority to get it done. But I mean, I'm just saying, if you can't get if there's nobody else that wants to do it, I'm dying anyways. Um, and I'm of the mind that hey, and this was the thing I really liked about Jeremy Corbell. He was the same way. He's like, I firmly believe that there should be a process and that we should follow guidelines if we can get the stuff in place. But if the only way to get this done, and again, I'm a nobody. Nobody's watching this podcast. But if there's no other way, then we gotta fucking. He called it the hard way. The easy way or the hard way. If we can't get anything realistically done, we gotta relook. We gotta do a fast relook at everything. And there's gonna be some stuff we're gonna be able to declassify, and there's some stuff that's gonna take a longer look. But we got such a backlog. We need to get through it. And I mean, and again, this thing with Chuck Schumer can take 25 years. Yeah, that's the fucking anti-grant method. We that I'm willing to bet that maybe a half to two-thirds can be immediately declassified as soon as they do a once over. You listen to the military, like David Graeber and some of the others. There's so much of this that's overclassified, and that's what I'm saying. You just do a high speed run. It's like, ooh, declassified, 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 and you're gonna see an effect because you're gonna be getting the information out to people. Um, Now the Jeremy, excuse me. I'm not gonna go into in a lot of detail. Jeremy suggested the mall aliens was not real. If I understood it wrong, I'm sorry, but the way I was taking it, and this is near the end of last, and I was getting really out of it. Um, it just struck me that he was saying that it was not real, and if I misunderstood him, then I am truly sorry. But and I'm sorry if because there were police, unless it was all set up. There were police that were there. Uh, if they broke the law in any way, shape, or form, they should be punished. Uh, and I just just like fake rape charges, fake harassment charges harm real victims from being believed. The same is true with the UFOs. If you have these fake UFOs, and Jeremy said, we're all a little bit responsible because we're gullible enough to believe anything, and I totally respect that opinion. But this to me, when we have, because again, in this, when he was talking about it, he said, I'll go into this in more detail on it, but he said that. What UFOs are taken more seriously than weapons of mass destruction by the government. And who knows? Maybe it's a government story. Maybe, and again, that's what I don't know. They're not going to. They're not going to waste the time and money doing something useful. But to me, what if this is part of a government or a government connected uh, cover up story? Get everybody running. It's like they. I mean, it's a little more exotic, but it's kind of like uh, that story from Phoenix Lights. You know, when that governor and at first I was kind of pissed at the guy, but then when I realized, hey, he may have, this is a guy that when he weighed in, he started getting in on Skinwalker Ranch. They had an attorney general that was starting to weigh in and was trying to get them some answers. And I'm like, hey, you gotta be careful because uh, back in the day when the Phoenix Lights hit, they they found charges suddenly on the governor. So just tell him to be careful. If there's any way they can embarrass him, they will do it. And I firmly believe that. And that this might be part of a disinformation campaign. They get this. It was real serious. They get this going. Well, they should be treated, especially if it's that. They should be treated the way the Project Veritas people should have been treated. You put them in jail. If you've got a government or if they're working for the military industrial complex and they're out doing this, you got to put them in jail. Write it all the way up to the top. Get the highest ranking one you can. Otherwise, it will keep happening. We've learned this from Donald Trump. We've learned this from the Republican Party. They let Nixon off the hook, and then you got Reagan. The only thing Bush, the dad, did wrong was he pardoned everybody in Iran Contra. But the reason they speculate that he did is because it was going to lead back to him. And then you got his son, dipshit Junior, was committing war crimes and a whole bunch of shit. And then the one guy is talking about, well, the military's never passed an audit. They had like skids full of money that came up missing, and okay, I gotta go to the bathroom. I'll be right back. Oh, I gotta get right back. Mic check, mic check, mic check. Ooh. Oh my God. I am so grateful. Oh, manna from heaven. I gotta, ooh. I gotta go put this in a chest. I'll probably forget which one I put it in, but yeah, the one day I was coming over here because over there I've been breeding them, and there's just so many useless horses, but I need them. That I decided to. I had a couple over in this area, and I'm like, well, I got to start breeding them because they had a pretty good jump. And I don't. I might not be wrong, but I might not be right, but it's my understanding that when you breed horses, all the horses in the area affect the horse, and it's why I go out of my way. Like if I'm breeding horses, I go out of my way to kill every useless horse. But I actually want the okay. Oh, okay. I actually want the various horse colors, so I just got to get some bred up, and I've gotten one over there that can jump pretty good. Because the ones over there are fairly fast, but they're just shit. Some of them can't even jump a single high fence. So I gotta get some better ones over there, and I might be wrong, but that's the premise that I'm going on is that the ones that you have in the area. Well, I'm over here. I'm far enough away, and I don't have that many. So when I get a good one and I breed it, it tends to pass it on because it's not being dragged down by all the shitty ones that are over there. Uh, okay, now this one here, Jeremy Corbell returns to spill UFO secret. Steve O's wild ride. And like I said yesterday when I was previewing this, I was gonna do it yesterday. I figured Steve O's wild ride would just be a total shit show. I really did. And no offense, but and it was the same way when I watched uh, oh, the guy from Jay and Silent Bob. It's the guy who plays Jay in there. He was guest hosting on. Uh, he was guest hosting on a couple episodes of Osborne's show. I can't remember the name of it. There's two. It's basically the same show, but there's like two different. And one of them they review videos in their basement. And again, they've got it where they can show you the video, and that I am not set up to do that. I don't know if it's even worth doing this because the way this computer when it goes to act up, it just might not be worth it to put all the effort into doing it when this thing's going to go out at any given time. But otherwise, I would. Uh, but uh, but the but I viewed it the same way. I'm just like, oh yeah, I'm a funny guy. I like him. And when I mean, I wasn't a big fan of the show, mostly because I just didn't watch it. Nothing against it, but the movies, I actually liked the movies. And but I just figured, oh, it's gonna be a total shit show, whatever. And I've only watched like 2 episodes, the ones with Jeremy on, so the show could be a total shit show, at least for me. But these two are great. If I could do half as well as him on I'd be a fucking I'd probably be having something. But I really if I had even half as much talent for doing a podcast as him, I'd be a happy camper. I really would. Uh, yeah, and I told you that they had his co-host. It was a surprise co-host. It's the guy that got his pubic hairs glued to his face for the skit they were doing. And Jeremy said that he would help Steve-O with his UFO addiction. That that was, and I don't think he meant it half serious, half joking, and Steve-O took it pretty good. Uh, Now Jeremy, this surprised me because he's I don't know if he's as old as I am, but he's in the ballpark, and Jeremy had not seen the Twilight Zone episode "To Serve Mankind," and if you're a kid, I guarantee you are unlikely to know it. Gonna have to go. You might have to go ask your great grandfather. Definitely your great grandfather. Maybe your grandfather knows. Twilight Zone was an old show, not the remake done by the guy from Key and Peele. Uh, Although I haven't seen it, but I got a feeling that it's probably in the ballpark of as good as the original, or it might even be better. That guy is just unbelievable. But go ask your grandparent. It's an old black and white show. I don't know when it was originally on, but I watched it as a kid. This is before cable TV. We had a over-the-air antenna. These were still on when I was a kid. And I think they tried to redo it in the 80s or the 90s, and it didn't last long. But the old one, that went on for a while. And there was one with William Shatner where it was before he became Captain Kirk. He was not real popular, and he flipping out on a plane. He kept yelling, "There's a man on the wing of the plane. There's a man on the wing of the plane." And they were taking him out in a straitjacket on a stretcher when they landed. And I don't know if it was an emergency landing or if they actually made it to where they were going. But when they were hauling him away, they went to the wing where that guy saw that there was like part of the wing was ripped up. He might have saved everybody's life. He went to the asylum, but it was all a story. Well, there was this one episode that was black and white. These aliens visited Earth, and they brought this book to serve mankind, and they were basically they were real polite. They were real friendly, and they had like I don't know if it was a lottery. It's been a while, but they had this contest or some way of choosing who got to go with the aliens. And as the ship was finally leaving, some guy came in. He was on the translation project because they got the book and they were told it was how to serve mankind. And the way these aliens were, they were all very nice and very polite. And then when they took off, guy came running out. He goes, "Stop! Stop! It's a cookbook!" And they brought that up, and he didn't know anything about it. And he's like, "Oh man, I'm like, "Oh my God, he's got to get out more, or he's got to turn on that." I mean, that's something that he should know. Uh, Now he gave some of his history. His Bob Lazar video, he took like 9 years to shoot, and he just finally took him like 9 years to shoot that. And then this is something I forgot. Um, he he and this has come out later. It wasn't in when I got this. Uh, he brought up one of the guys brought up John Lear, and I think he at the time he was alive. I think it's still true. He had, I don't know if it was including military pilots, but he had because he was a test pilot. I don't know if it was including military pilots, but he has got the most certifications for flying planes. I think it's in the civilian world, but it might be the military world because he was a test pilot for a lot of the experimental stuff. And and like later on when they brought him up, because somebody was asking, and they were talking about things. Well, somebody was asking, well, they go, wasn't that John Lear that started talking about this giant antenna and you know, it was, I don't know if he was talking about on the moon or if it was on Mars or what, but he goes, well, yeah, he goes, John Lear was the grandfather of the conspiracy theorists, and you know, it is what it is, but he goes, what the fuck? Fucking thieving little piece of shit. And but he got talking about John Lear, and he goes, well, yeah, you know, he got me into this. You know, he was like Bob Lazar. You know, I grew up. You know, I kind of grew up in this subject with him, and he goes, we were good friends, and I learned a lot from him. And it sounds like they weren't good friends in the end because it came out that John Lear wanted him to make a video about John Lear, and it ended up turning into Bob Lazar. It was the one, and that explains again why it took so long to do it. Um, but he mentioned a few things, and I did not know this. Uh, when his dad died, his dad was the guy who created Lear, the company, and he wasn't sounding too sure, but he goes, I think his dad left him like a can of dog food. And he wasn't joking. He goes, you know, his dad, you know, did not like him, and it's like when they go, oh well, so and so gets this except for, you know, everybody gets this except for my son John Lear, and so he didn't get anything, and that explains a lot. Uh, you know, cause I always thought he was a rich kid growing up, but it's like no, he was hated by his dad, and and then he said he was working on this video, and then at a certain point, John Lear signed something on a napkin that gave one of his relatives the rights to everything he had done, and then they started, you know, basically demanding stuff from Jeremy, and Jeremy's like, "Yeah, later, I'm out." And then he goes, and that's why I started working on the Bob Lazar. And he goes, I think he had grudge, but he goes, the fact is, I couldn't shoot the video about him because of the stuff he did. You know, he sabotaged it, and and then now this is the thing he talked about: the cases like Grutch and others being threatened is with the IG. So that there are cases of either people being killed or people being, you know, fucked with, harassed, threatened, intimidated to silence them as witnesses. Those are all with the IG right now. And he really hoped that they were being taken seriously. This is where he kind of threw this out. Just so you know, like when I finished what I was doing last night, which was right around now, that's where I just took off and went to bed, and then I watched the rest. I think maybe I was typing this last night, but then I watched like oh, yeah, I guess everything here is yeah, that's why I was doing the ad lib at the beginning, but everything here is what I typed up, but I was only like halfway through it. You know, give or take a few minutes, but I was about halfway through it. Well, then when I woke up around midnight, 1 o'clock, I started to watch. I tried for like a couple hours to go back to sleep, didn't work. And then as soon as I put this up, I'm like, well, if I'm up, I might as well watch the rest of this video. And as soon as I put the video on, oh fucking just great fall. You know, as soon as something I wanted to watch, I fell asleep, and that's why I watched it when I got up today. Uh, but he got in here and he talked about UFOs are treated at a higher level of classification than weapons of mass destruction. And when he explained it, it made some sense because weapons of mass destruction, they understand those. And with some of the indications that some of them may no longer work. Uh, we dropped those ones on Nagasaki and Hiroshima. It was a new technology. Uh, they might not have known enough about it to stop it. But now there's stories of both with Russian and with American. With the American videos, the stories that are being told is that occasionally the UFOs will show up and the missiles will just shut themselves off. And there have been Russians that have come forward. If the reporting is true, if they're lying to me, I'm lying to you. It's just I'm not doing it on purpose. Um, when the but but when the Russians were bothered by the UFOs, their missiles came on. And my take on that, and again, I haven't heard anybody else say this. I'm not saying they haven't, but I haven't heard anybody else. Is I would take that as the Americans feared not being able to use them, and the Russians feared being able to use them. That's the that and so they dealt with what you were most afraid of, like they could read your mind. Otherwise, they'd have just done the same thing to both sides. Uh, he got into the subject and he talked about I think CIA Project Mockingbird. I have not heard of this or I don't remember hearing about this, but Project Mockingbird apparently according to him was a real project. I haven't heard of it where the CIA was using journalists to print fake stories. And they got caught doing it, but they'd either bribe them, they'd threaten them, but they basically get them to write stories that the government wanted or the CIA wanted. And and the thing I gotta say is this was going on during the Iraq War. You had, and it was probably during the Nixon administration, but that's something Dick Cheney would do. So it was at least going on a limited basis. There, I don't know if he was paying them or what, but he had journalists that would. This was on the regular news. This was on national news, but he would go out and he'd leak these stories, and he'd get these journalists to write them, and then he'd go on, or others would go on, and then they'd be like, oh well, he'd just mention it. He'd be like, oh well, the New York Times, or I can't remember what paper it was, but he's like, oh, so and so's got a story on that. This is, and then he would put the story out, and then he would mention the story to get his point across. It was very effective. It's the same way like Devin Nunes. This was going on during the Bush administration, where I think it was the Bush administration, where he'd get this information from the White House, and then he'd run to the White House to share the information that he just got from them. And then, but again, that was coming up. It took a while to get the Dick Cheney story, but the Congress, it was like, yeah, what do you mean? You fucking ran and gave it to the White House, but you just got it from them. And, so they got caught a little bit on that. But when you look now, doesn't it seem like it's going on now? Seriously, you got like a total. I mean, there was some initial reporting, but now the news is real quiet about this UFO. They're not having on real experts. They're having on, Neil deGrasse Tyson. They're not bringing on the whistleblowers. They're not bringing on people that might know something about it. It looks like the same thing. Uh, and if you're someone that doesn't believe the CIA would do that, I just want to point out that they treated people with LSD. That I know about, and it came out. Apparently, it started. It started as a truth serum exploitation, but then it morphed into one where they just want to see what would happen. And but they apologized to this. I think I'm pretty sure I'm sorry, but they apologized, and it was they were drugging Americans on U.S. soil. So I don't have any problem believing it. I don't know that it's true, but I have no problem whatsoever believing it. And okay, now he got talking about the jellyfish, and that's where I said that he's been reported. This goes back to the beginning of UFO sightings, and uh, I kind of, again, I'm going to mention this again. Try not to beat a dead horse, but it kind of what it looked like was it looked like the little droid that they had on Hoth, the one that was spying on everybody. That's what it looked like. And it was going around, and they could not see it with the naked eye. They could not see it with night vision or what. It was like I think it's the tactical gear that the soldiers carry, but they could see it on thermal. There was some kind of thermal imaging that they could now see it on, but it was changing. It was changing colors, meaning the temperature was changing, and but they couldn't see it with the naked eye. The troops had no idea. The everyday troops. And Jeremy Corbell gets more information out. I kind of watched the video. I kind of mentioned that there's a guy I worked with that was like really not a bad guy when you got to know him, but he was he just came off to me as a prick when I didn't spend that much time around him. But when you worked with him, he was a good guy. And I should have explained it, and I'm doing better today than I was that day. I just kind of go, yeah, and Jeremy Corbell. Jeremy Corbell comes off as like a surfer dude. I mean, I don't mean that in a bad way either, but he just comes off as not real serious, real fun guy, and I think he would agree. But when you listen to him, oh my God, there's a lot there to unpack. And but on this subject with the jellyfish, he has given more information than every other video I've seen. Uh, but they said it was on there. They couldn't see it. And then he hasn't been able to release this. He said he physically doesn't have it. And he, but this thing supposedly went out, spent like, I think it was 17 minutes in the water. Yesterday I wasn't sure if it was 17 or 27, but it spent like 17 minutes in the water and it came out, and eventually it left at a velocity. I think one of the videos, I don't know if it was Jeremy or one of the other videos, they said it left at a velocity that they could not tell you how fast it was going. It went away so fast up into the sky. And I want to get into that because when I watched it this morning, the part that I was finishing, they speculated, and he said this is just total speculation, but and it makes sense. When these things go into the water, the USOs, um, when you have uh, like aliens that go into the water, he said that when you have, I disagree with it in part, but I don't know if I'm right or not. I'm not a I'm not a scientist, and I don't even play one on TV in front of a sex toy shop in New Jersey like Rudy Giuliani. But they the he said they go in there because like, it was like you go to other planets and you could have variations in environment. He goes, well, when you are going into the water on any planet you go on to, pressure, it's going to be the same temperature. It's going to have pressure. If it's liquid water, it's going to have pressure based on depth. And I think that's wrong. I might not, maybe it's wrong, but it's not enough to really matter. But temperature is going to be based on uh, things in the ocean floor, like is the Earth that it's on, is that volcanic? Is it cooler? That can affect the temperature. The sunlight, is the sunlight like just beating down, or because I mean, there's variation to degree in ours. Like you got the tropical regions, and you've got cool or whatever. So I mean, there's some variation, but maybe it's not enough to matter. And the other thing is about gravity. It seems to me like the size of the planet, the density of the planet might affect that. Again, I don't know. It just seems like there'd be, but the one thing I was speculating on, maybe the reason why some of these go in there, maybe it is to cool off. It could be, but maybe that's a fuel source because they go down there and they could get like if you've got a source of hydrogen 3, uh, that would be that's like a really good source of energy. But even if they just go into regular water, they might be able to get. And again, maybe it's not propelling, maybe it's not the craft propulsion that they're getting. Maybe it's for life support or whatever. But they could be going down in there and grabbing the hydrogen for a fuel source. And now I think there were a couple other things that they said this morning that I was going to talk about, and if I think about them, I will jump into them. But I'm going to take a deviation. Like I said, this right now at this point is about halfway through the video. I've watched the rest of it. I fully recommend that if this is anything that is interesting to you, you go watch the whole video and get the stuff that I missed. But I'm going to take a little deviation. Um, when I look at that thing, I am speculating, and I don't know. I just think it's a, but that thing there, if you, I don't know if it was in the Bible or if it was just, it was either Old Testament or it was in stuff in the Apocrypha. Uh, the stuff that wasn't included, but it was biblical writings. They were written it were written in the same time, the same method, by the same types of people as the rest of the stuff in the Bible. So on some level, it's at least as credible as what it was a decision by man, not by God, what they were going to put in there. And when you looked at this thing, I remember, and mostly because they've been talking about it on Ancient Aliens and other shows. But in some of the biblical texts, they talk about, there's things that are mentioned now that they weren't called demons. They were called dingens or something like that. Basically, the male form of a genie. And Solomon, Solomon's in the Bible. And it's at least as this story is as credible as the other ones, maybe even more credible. He was reported as having a ring with God's name inscribed in it or whatever that controlled these dingy or whatever they were, and that they're the ones that built Solomon's temple. And again, like I was saying, I don't know if I said it on here, but the other day, this was Neil deGrasse Tyson. He, I think I mentioned it was like a meme or whatever that I found, but he was talking about, oh, these people don't know what they're talking about, so they didn't know what stars were, and so we can't believe them on anything. Well, no, all we know for sure is back then they were not as uneducated as Neil deGrasse Tyson, speaking about things he doesn't know. But all we can be for sure is that they didn't know what stars were. We still have, today, you tell your kids to wish upon a falling star. And now it's not a star, but they still saw something in the sky. And it just is what it is. Well, maybe these were aliens or robots or drones or whatever, and they just didn't know what to call them. They didn't have those words. So when they talked about Solomon having this ring that controlled something, maybe it was a ring, but maybe it was technology that controlled these things. And maybe we're seeing a return of them, or maybe we've now got the technology to see them. And he talked about this. Again, this was Jeremy Corbell. This is a real good video. Back in time, you have stories of aliens coming down and knocking down a wall. They talk about these shields that came down. I have never heard any of this, so I don't know. But he was talking about, that there's some reporting like around Alexander the Great that these shields came down and knocked down walls for him and stuff like that. And he goes, now, who knows? That was, it could just be a story. It could be something, it could be just a story, or it could be like the story of Jericho where, they walked around the town, the town with the walls, Jericho or whatever, 7 times, and then they blew a trumpet and the fucking walls fell down. Well, I have trouble believing that, because if that was really a thing, then you wouldn't have the siege craft back then, or it was something they had just gotten. And the other thing is, if the stories of the Ark of the Covenant were really true, that it was so powerful, well then why did you have you know, why did you have like people trying to sneak and smuggle it out? If it was so powerful, why didn't you just destroy the people that are knocking at your door? There's something missing to that story. Uh, I mean, again, that's just common sense. If this was a wall that was if this was a thing that was just so powerful, it could smite your enemies. Well, then why was there like one or two instances in the Bible where the enemy was at the gate? They could have sicked the Ark of the Covenant on them, and yet they had to flee. They had to smuggle everything out, leaving like bandits in the middle of the night. I don't know. But in modern day times, you have them coming down talking to people. And I think I got this wrong, but I think he called it the aerial because I told you I'd try and get you some information. I think he was gonna find come down and talk to people. I think like the aerial school, and I think it's that one. But they talked to these kids. Well, the two kids that were the closest to it were getting talked to, and they were being talked to by these aliens that we haven't been taking good care of the planet and other, and again, like you listen. I mean, military is seeing these things every day or almost every day. Now, again, maybe it's because maybe it's because we can finally see him now, or maybe something's coming back. And and again, this goes. This he didn't talk about this, but I'm throwing it in there. Uh, you take a look at the balloons that they had. I think last year, the year before, and you had the first one was a China balloon. We got to see that all over. We got to see that was a Chinese spy balloon. We got to see that all day long. And then there was another one, and it was supposedly another Chinese spy balloon, but we didn't get to see that. Still to this day, they have not released it. And we apparently got up, and that one there we didn't let fly over the U.S. We shot that one down immediately. So I think the first one was a Chinese spy balloon. It wasn't that big of a deal. The second one was a little bit more like maybe maybe they thought, hey, they let that Chinese balloon go. We'll be able to do the same thing. And we recognized it for what it was, and we went and shot it down. And then the other part of it was there was one over Canada. If it was just a simple Chinese spy balloon, I am quite sure the Canadian Air Force, they're very good. They could have shot it down. So it was probably something more because they called up. We had to go. We had to go shoot it down. If it was a simple Chinese spy balloon, I'm quite sure the Canadian Air Force would have been able to deal with it. And that was, again, and we still have not gotten any answers to this day. But again, I don't know, but it just seems like common sense would tell you that I'm more right than the government is right. That the government is a cover story. And regardless of what it is, there's something missing here that we maybe have a right to know. But there appears to be an observation aspect of the phenomenon. And that's where he talked about, if you have an ant hill or an ant farm, do you go talk to the ants, or you just have it there? And then he spoke about Childhood's End by Arthur C. Clarke. It's about aliens observing and helping us, and they were trying to get us ready for when they could make contact, but they looked like demons. And there's a I'm just going to throw this out there in case you're interested in it. There was a book, I can't remember a lot of the details on it, but there was a book series that was written, and it was Star Trek, And if I'm not mistaken, it was a novel. It was written where they had one book for each TV show. And like you had one with Enterprise, I think Enterprise. Enterprise might not have been created yet. But I think they had one for Enterprise. They definitely had one with the original series, one with Next Generation, one with Voyager, one I think with Deep Space Nine, and they were like an old race, and they were actually pretty decent people. They were not aggressive, but again, they they looked like demons, and they had the same kind of problem here. You know, they had them. They every time people saw them, they freaked out because it was just a race memory or something, or was something about their species just made people fucking crazy. Uh, and that was the gist of it. Was probably inspired. Now that I know this, I'm thinking, yeah, it was probably inspired by Arthur C. Clarke's book. Um, but we know, whether you realize it or not, we know that the Bible is wrong. You get that one historian, I can't think of his name, uh, read the book Misquoting Jesus, and he talks about how even if the Bible is the Word of God, which there's no evidence that it is, we don't know what the Word of God is because the Bible is no longer accurate. It's been copied. He's proven that because to give you a little heads up on this guy, uh, he became a born again Christian in high school, and he thought that there was something missing in his life, and it was Jesus. And so that set him on a course. And he said, he goes, I now know that kids just go through that. It's completely natural, and they just need to be talked through it. It's a developmental thing. Many kids feel that way, and the religions, and religion's not bad. It's the people in it. When you get these born again Christians, I don't think they're in a good place. You get these snake handlers; these are all just fucking crazy. These are people as crazy. Now they might not be as dangerous as, but these people are just as crazy as the fucking terrorists. Um, they are, and but he went through, and he basically graduated high school, and he wanted to go and learn the original languages, and he wanted, because he thought it would get him closer to God, and he wanted to learn the languages that the Bible was actually written. This may be another clue. They're not all written in fucking Hebrew or whatever. Uh, I might This might not be an exhaustive list, but the original, because the Bible was not written in book form. What you had was, it's basically like a collection of short stories. Uh, it's not really exact, but if you look at the Tao of Jeet Kune Do, that was a book that was never meant to be a book. It was all these notes and whatnot and everything and then they brought in an editor to assemble them and make it into a book format. And if you go and get the original book, I think in the remake they didn't include it because the mother was no longer in charge of the Lee estate, but the daughter did, and her husband, the lawyer, did. But in the original book, the editor had a point where they put a thank you to Dan Inosanto for helping him take the words of Bruce Lee, and I'm not getting an exact quote, but he thanked him for taking the product of the book and translating it into action so he could understand. Because there was so much he didn't understand when he was doing that. Well, Dan Inosanto and his students showed them, like, well, when Bruce Lee said this is what he was talking about. And there was a thank you in there from Linda Lee Caldwell, who was the wife of Bruce Lee. There was a vote. And pretty much every one of the books that he did, she thanked Dan for keeping his her husband's legacy alive and relevant. And you can take this for however you want it, but there was never any thank you, for because again, maybe it's because they never wrote a book. I don't know, but there was never any thank you. It was always a thank you to Dan. It wasn't a thank you to anybody else that I ever read. But again, I read his books, so maybe I'm wrong. But after the daughter got in charge of the estate, there seemed to be like a serious attempt to rewrite history. Take it for what it's worth. But and he wanted to go get this, and like it was Greek, it was Aramaic, and like I said, those are just some, and it's not an exhaustive list, but there were different languages that the books were written in. And then once he did that, and like the first place he went to, it was a real humdinger. It was a real Bible thumping. He I think he worded it. They ate, slept. Basically, that every waking minute was the Bible. That these people did not believe in movies, TV. They didn't believe in dancing. They were literally like the Christians in the Footloose movie. That they and then when he was getting done there, he was going to the school that the evangelist Billy Graham. It's the father that's dead, not the dipshit son who's a fucking, I think, a closeted terrorist. Uh, that's just my opinion, but he was going to that school that the dad went to, and this was a guy that was revered by the Queen of England. He advised like something like umpteen fucking presidents, and when he said that he was going there next, he was told, well, you probably won't. This just shows you how insane these people were. He was told by them, oh, you probably won't meet many real Christians there. And again, I don't know what you want to think, but I had a moderate amount of respect for Billy Graham. And it's like you got the Pope now. You got all these people around. Well, God doesn't like this. God doesn't like gay people. God doesn't like transvestites. Well, you might want to go check with the Pope. And I would say he's a higher authority than you are. But he has said that they're going to allow blessings of, I think, gay marriages or homosexual marriages or what. I mean, they can't, but they just don't want them to advertise it, but they can do it. He's someone that's come out as soon as he got in there, that we can't be treating God like they're a character out of Harry Potter. You can't be treating Jesus like he's a character out of Harry Potter running around doing magic and stuff. And he said we got to get back to our root cause, which is helping people. And again, I am gonna anytime this subject comes up, I'm gonna try and throw this in. When you look at the Fatima, and when you look at that, I can't remember what the Notre Dame's one is. But when you look at the Fatima prediction, or the best we can tell, because I don't think it's been released, and when you look at that prophecy of the 12 popes, I look at this pope, and he looks like he's doing a good job. He's out there trying to help people. And now, if you believe in Satan, and this guy is the Antichrist, I view it as, if he is the Antichrist, if that does come out, well, maybe he's called the Antichrist because of all the lies that the church may have told about Christ. You hear some evidence that supports that he had a wife and kids, may have had their father children, and then you've got, and was just a normal man. Like the Essenes have, and the Essenes have envisioned. Maybe the Gnostic Gospels, maybe the Apocrypha. Maybe that's the thing. And now it could be that Satan's bad, and this. If it's true, I'm not saying it is. I find this story interesting. I find this way more interesting than the other ones because just there's so much shit coordinating on this. Uh, but maybe if Satan's is evil, maybe this is his way in. And I don't know, but when I look at the people who say they are with God over here in the United States, the Marjorie Taylor Greens, the Lauren Boeberts, the Chip Roys, that new fucking nut job of a Speaker of the House, I don't see that as good. I literally don't see that as good. I don't see how you can. Uh, and if the Pope is, basically helping people and whatnot, I don't see that as bad. Now again, maybe Satan, this is his way in, but it still doesn't explain the bad people that you have on the far right, the so-called Christians. And I think maybe that the thing is right, but it's not being taken in the wrong way. Maybe the Antichrist isn't necessarily a bad thing because you look at the side that is of Christ. That these fucking toxic people, maybe it's the Antichrist because they have taken over Christ and they're not doing any good in His good name. So maybe there's something lost in the translation, and the Antichrist is just the ones that are against the lies being told. The Republican Jesus out there, and I mean, because you look at this is stuff I can tell you is fairly true, and there's a lot more that I just can't remember right now. But like Christmas, Christmas is I don't know if you can put that on religion. I don't know, but Christmas was taken from Krampus, and it was for a morph, but it was a fucking evil thing. And then some found a way to change it to St. Nicholas. Krampus was gone, Krampus is out, and St. Nicholas is in. Jesus' birthday. Um, Jesus wasn't born in Christmas. I don't think anybody knows exactly when he was born, but he would have been born more when there was not snow on the ground. And they literally took the Saturnalia or something. It's a big festival that that's done. That they took that and they started celebrating it as Jesus' birthday because if they'd have wanted to do it at Jesus' birthday, that's when people would have been like farming and then they just wouldn't have followed it. But you took over it was basically it was a festival for Saturn. It would have been, I think, Zeus with the Greek, but they took over his festival that was in the middle of winter when there was nothing to do, and that's what you had. The resurrection of Jesus was very similar. I think it was Egyptian gods. It was very similar to Osiris coming back from the dead. The 3 days, a woman played a prominent role, but with him, it's like he was put back together. So it sounded like it was a robot. It was like Data being put together after they took him apart in Star Trek. But it was the same thing. And again, I don't think it really happened to him, but it was just a way to pin him on it. In the Da Vinci Code, at the beginning of that movie, and I started thinking about this guy. I just rewatched it, but with all this other shit, uh, we know that Poseidon's trident was turned into the devil's pitchfork or the devil's trident. It used to be Poseidon. You know, um, when you look at the stories of Atlantis and the Anakia or I'm pronouncing it wrong, but it's Anukia, or I think it's the one that the Indians mention it, but it's that one in Lemuria. There again, I don't know if any of this is true, but it's just a story. But and I don't know where he gets his information from, so I don't know if it's credit. I really don't know, but there's two different, and this is the thing with the Atlantis. A lot of that's similar. Where the Anunnaki, that's it. The Anunnaki, I think, is what they were mentioning, and the Lemuria. I've heard a lot of variations in those stories, and but in one of them that they were doing, I think this is on the Gaia channel. They they uh, they mentioned that Atlantis and Lemuria were friends for a while. It was a good long while, and the Anakia, or I can't remember the name, but the one I heard was that the Anakia, or that's as close as I'm going to be able to get it. Uh, they they seeded like the trust between Atlantis and Lemuria to get them to go to war, and um and so maybe because the Lemurian people, they were maybe reptile, maybe aquatic. Again, I don't know if I haven't heard that much about them. This is all recent discovery. At least I don't remember it. But they were ones that did not breed like we did. That they were like they like grew eggs or something. I think they might have been like self-replicating. Like they didn't have to mate to have children. I don't know, but I think I'm not. This is another one. You shouldn't trust me. If you're interested, you should go look it up. And I think it matters like who you talk to. But but yeah, this is just shit. I for a while I'm gonna have to go find somewhere else to fish. I have really been trying to get. I don't think I found one mending book over here. Uh, but the I gotta get in there and change this when it freezes. Uh, and then the Bible tells the story of a lizard or snake, and its only crime was that it gave us knowledge. You know, um, and that being the fact that all it did was it showed up and it gave us knowledge, and it was portrayed the apple, and I've seen some discussion that it probably wasn't apple, it was probably a papaya or something like that. Uh, but it was the whole idea of this guy being friendly and giving us knowledge was evil. Now, forget your teachings. Just think of that. They didn't say he gave us evil or he gave us weapons or he told us to go have a fucking orgy or whatever. He gave us knowledge. And that was viewed as evil. And when you look at the one party that's, they want to lie to you, keep you stupid. They've got a war on education. They don't want us. They don't want us to teach the truth about slavery. They don't want us to teach the truth on history. And I've always said, stupid people fear the truth. Always said that. When I was down in Indiana before I got sick, There was somebody down. Oh man, why? He was losing he was losing the argument, but he's like, oh my God. He wrote me in private. Why do you got to say that about the founding fathers and blah blah blah? What yeah, they did things wrong, but why do you got to talk about it? Blah blah. And I told him, I've found in my lifetime that only stupid people fear the truth, and that he didn't like it. But it's true. It was true now as it is back then. And you and when you go back and you look at the Da Vinci Code with Poseidon's Trident and other things that they've done, history is taught by the winners. You know, if England had won, George Washington would have been the villain. And and this is the big if, but if the story is true with Atlantis, the Anakia, and the Lemurians, uh, maybe the Anakia came out victorious, and so that's why Poseidon's trident was turned into the devil's trident. Maybe that's why the Lemurians and maybe another race, they were portrayed as demons. Instead of like that one that it was again, it goes back to that ring that Solomon had. This was a story. Uh, maybe these creatures, maybe they weren't even really creatures. Maybe they were robots. But maybe these beings or equipment, they were portrayed as demons now because Solomon was good and they were evil and they won the story and they jammed it down our throat. And maybe that's why that changed. And maybe the Lemurians were just turned into snakes and lizards and other things. Evil, because again, the Anunnaki, they wanted to keep us stupid. So that, maybe that's where the whole Bible came from. Or maybe it was people that thought they knew and they just got it wrong. But I don't know. Like there's some things in the Bible, they're wrong, but I could see they were helpful. Like, the thing of touching the skin of a pig. Now maybe that was nonsense, but I got a feeling that somewhere along the line, somebody figured out that when you ate pork, you got ill. They didn't know why. They didn't care. And if you talk to a starving man and you tell him that you can't eat this, and his family is starving, well, if it's just man telling you, go fuck yourself. I'm going to feed my family. Getting sick's tomorrow's problem. I got to keep them alive. But if you make it a commandment, it's something that the all chosen one has told you. Well, then it becomes more real. If you are just a horrible person, and you don't want to give your property to if your wife cheated on you, and you don't want your property to go to your maybe that's where these laws that came about of property that was in the Bible. Maybe that was just a greedy thing, uh, it wasn't a will of God. It was it was really man. But again, if you put it in there that it's man, well, then maybe the judges of the day will, oh, fuck you, you raised that child, your wife raised that child, especially if you go back to where women were more in charge. You know, maybe you're not, maybe women were in charge and they had control of the money. Well, then men took over and they said, hey, well, fuck the woman. That's got to be passed on to the man's child. Fuck the woman. Fuck her little kid. And that's how this stuff got put in there, and not because of God's law, but because of greedy men. Uh, And the one thing that got me, and it was an episode of The West Wing. They were going through. Uh, he was basically trying to get against a right wing nut job. I'm starting to fade. I'm pretty much done now, anyways. So I'll log off in a minute. And but he was going off and around. He goes, well, he goes, do I have to kill my brother for planting crops of two types next to each other? And and just going through the list. Do I have to stone my mother for wearing? I might be mixing it up, but they were all in there. Do I have to stone my mother, or can I not stone my mother in a private ceremony by the garden instead of in front of the whole town? For because she wears like a cloth made out of two types of seed or whatever, like for cotton polyester blend, and it was all these things in the Bible because she was going off on gay people. And he pointed, well, and again, this is something I heard a long time ago that there's something like hundreds of commandments, and there's really no reason that some should be taken more seriously than others, except for that one version of the Bible that I did a podcast about, I think. And they found an old copy of uh, the Book of Enoch or something like that. And in it was like they gave nine commandments that were special, and then the other ones were like ordinary. And it was the only time I've heard that. Other than that, I've heard that all the commandments all have the same weight. Well, he mentioned, he's like, oh, if touching the skin of a dead pig is forbidden. Again, it probably had to do with hygiene and whatnot, but because it had problems that like beef didn't. And he goes, if the whatever football team wears gloves, can they play football on Saturday? Can Notre Dame? Can so and so? Can the Army? And he rattled it off, and it was just all the stuff that is. I mean, again, it's in the Bible. It should be just fucking flat out done. And yet the people, they pick and choose like it's a Costco or a buffet. They pick and choose which parts of the Bible they're going to follow. And I mean, maybe we got to go back to following it all if the Fatima is true. But I just sort of speculate, well, what if this is all bullshit? And, created by the popes to continue on the dominion of the Roman Catholic hierarchy. Because the guy in question, he probably didn't care about his kids. Maybe he couldn't have kids, but all he cared about was ruling until the end of his day. And you got the same people that supposedly killed Jesus shaping much of his future. I got a feeling, and again, I don't know, but I got to tell you, if that Pope is the Antichrist, he's good. Again, maybe it's some clever ruse by the devil or whatever, but I don't see it. And as long as this guy keeps doing what he's doing, I see it as a good thing. I really do. And again, ongoing theme I got, maybe not everything in the Bible is useful or true. And, I've just hit the tip of the iceberg. But again, the Jesus birthday, I maybe Christmas isn't really that fair, but Jesus' birthday is. The story of the resurrection, not original. I mean, I'm not saying that it didn't happen. I don't think it did, but it's not unique. Him being the Messiah, not unique. There was, I think, like two others before him, and they pretty much died too. But I don't know. Peace out, and I hope everybody has a good day.